everyone, welcome back to Straight from the Drafts. Today is a solo episode and I want to talk to you about the last year of business because, to be totally honest, and this may not come as a surprise to you, I have been having a full-on identity crisis in the business for the last year. And I don't say year to exaggerate. I'm pretty sure the first time I said it out loud and started having these conversations with my sister was last March. And I kind of admitted for the first time that I was pretty sure I was building a business that I didn't want. Now, at this point, so March last year, I was about 6 months into having a team. And I loved them. I had 2 virtual assistants. So we never actually met in person, but we had like weekly catch-ups. And I felt so lucky because so many people had said to me that finding freelancers that you love is really difficult. But we worked great together. We got on really well. And on paper, things were going really well for the business. But I was essentially building a social media management agency, and I could feel myself distancing from the purpose and the passion that I had to begin with when I first set up the business. And I knew I could keep going down that route. I could keep adding more clients. I now had the team to support with that, and they were very settled in at this point. But it didn't feel like my dream, and it didn't feel like my version of success. And it is so frustrating to get to a point that you'd kind of previously been hoping to get to, and then get there and realise, oh, this isn't actually what I want. And now don't get me wrong, I am very grateful for that time period because having the team at that time actually meant that I could easily drop my hours. And last year I spent a lot of time with my baby niece, and I could support with childcare when my sister went back to work. But it kind of just felt like a year of going through the motions, and I didn't feel super excited about the business. I wasn't growing it. So that's kind of the context of wanting to switch things up. And what I'm about to say, I will say with the caveat of I love my clients and I will always put in effort to my client work. It is the way I am wired. I think that is the right thing to do. But if I'm being totally honest, I didn't really wake up on a Monday morning like, yeah, let's create Instagram content, or dream of being like the go-to for social media management. And I thought that I wanted that. I really believe that I had the skill set to make that happen. But I do think you don't work for yourself to feel flat about the work that you do. And it's not like I despised that work, but flat. And self-employment is so hard. I just don't think you should settle. And I think if you've got that urge to change things, then you are well within your rights, and I absolutely think you should change that because we're in control, and how fortunate are we to be able to change things. Of course, like, yes, you need to pay the bills, and there are always going to be parts of the job we don't love. I know for some people that probably is social media. For others, it might be finances. But on the whole, I do think it's important and we deserve to feel passionate and excited generally about what our week looks like. So that was kind of my sign and my trigger point of, right, okay, I need to change my core offers. So what am I changing it to? And I also want to say at this point, not to brag, because this does feel a bit like a brag, throughout my life, there have been big, scary decisions to make. And I've always had a really strong gut instinct. And I think that might be my next solo episode, to share those kind of like self-trust milestones throughout my life. Almost as if I am a guest on this podcast. But essentially, I haven't massively had a problem with self-trust in the past. But this last year, that intuition has gone silent on me. and I have really struggled to make a decision about where to go next. So even though I'm kind of saying that these flags were there a year ago, I have spent the last year getting so frustrated with myself and going round and round in circles because I have been unable to make a decision and get the clarity about, okay, like, what's next. So in the last year, I have basically driven my business into the ground, and I'm now attempting to pull it out of the bin again. And I haven't really said that out loud, not publicly anyway, anywhere. So I am hoping that this podcast is the safe space that I built it to be. I, for context, stopped taking on new management clients. I think I kind of publicly said that around summertime last year, and I was going to focus on like done with you rather than done for you. And I just changed my, instead of, being a social media manager, it was very much around like being a strategist. So I kind of cut back on potential new income, but I didn't promote new things either. And I think it was because I knew I wanted to change things, but I also had a blocker. So I kept paying for my team until like October, November 2025. But realistically, I probably needed to reduce that expense months before I did. But I'd gotten so used to having the help, and I was really grateful for the space that it gave me, like I said, to spend time with my niece and help out with childcare with her. So it felt really tricky to let them go. I did sadly say goodbye to them in November, and I just brought 3 management clients with me into 2026. And I've been working with them for a while. I really, really do love them all. And along the way of this last year, I have made sure that before sharing anything publicly on Instagram about changes that I'm making, they hear it from me first, and they kind of know the context of what is changing, how, if at all, it affects them. And they have been incredibly supportive. So I just kind of want to caveat that, if you do have clients who are working with you on the things that you want to change, I do think it's important and respectful to loop them in, because I would never want my clients to see an Instagram post about me not wanting to do management anymore and being like, does this mean we're done? And equally, I don't want them to feel like I'm not going to put the love and the passion into their work that they deserve. So I've been very transparent with them behind the scenes. But yeah, in between client work, I have been in a real panic, to be honest, especially in the sort of late months of 2025 and at the very start of this year. I've almost taken work off the table as a topic of conversation, and people have been like, how's work? I've just responded, don't ask me about that, because it was just such a miserable topic for me and so frustrating. And as much as when you're an online business owner, you have to kind of share so much online, I've really just felt the need to protect my peace with this while it was something that I was actually struggling with. And I always want to be the person to go first and to be transparent about things aren't perfect behind the scenes. But I think there does come a point where you have to work out your boundaries and work out what you need. And for me, that was to kind of share these thoughts with friends and family and the people that I wanted to talk to about it. But in general, dial back on the work chat while I was figuring things out for myself. Because I think the last thing I needed was more opinions and questions when I had so many unanswered questions for myself. So yeah, I have been voice noting my friends a lot. I'm very grateful for their patience. And I had countless conversations with my sister about kind of what I wanted to do next and what I thought she thought I should do next and all that kind of thing. And other than the announcement last summer about leaning into being a strategist instead of doing done for you management, I didn't share that much. I thought I did at the time, and I kind of was sure that pivot to focus on strategy was enough. But since that, it has just still felt unfinished. I still felt undecided. So I am talking like months have dragged on now of not taking on more clients because I wasn't going all out marketing my services, and not just not taking on management clients, but not taking on anything, even the sort of strategy offers that I'd put together. And I knew, or I suppose I've got to this place now where I've realised it's because my subconscious has been like, no, this isn't what you want to do. So it's been an internal battle. And it's probably only as it turned 2026, like January this year, when I really ramped up the like, right, we are making a decision. And with all of this, because I've been so used to having this really strong intuition and then not feeling like it was telling me anything, I have lost a lot of trust in myself over the past year. And other things have added to that. So I was in a car accident last summer as well, and I decided to get a hire car on a workation I was going on, because it was much easier to get myself from the airport to join the rest of the girls out there by hiring a car. And I thought, like, I can do hard things, and I was in a car accident. So that added to my, oh, I can't do hard things. So the self-trust has been shattered over the last year. And I knew that part of figuring out what's next for the business was also rebuilding that self-trust. So I've been setting myself some challenges, and I thought I would share some of what that looks like as well, because while I have had to make a decision about what's changing in the business and I want to share that, I also thought it might be interesting to see some of the steps I've taken behind the scenes to get to this point. So one big thing, I don't use ChatGPT at all now. Now, I never used it for client work or for my own content, but I really had started using it as a brainstorming tool. And I was trying to use it to help me figure out what my offers should be. I'm not really sure when I gave that up. That was definitely before this year. So for a good few months now, ChatGPT is gone. I am learning to use my own brain. And I also have a sticker chart for 10,000 steps a day. Now, this might sound silly, but I have a terrible habit of just staying in my house, sitting at my desk, not moving, even when, I'm sure you've gathered, I have not been fully booked over these last however many months. I did not and do not need to be at my desk all day, 5 days a week, but I have been. I have been procrastinating, just sort of sat there. I have not been making the most of the quiet time at all. Even though I would say to myself, like, right, I'll go for a walk tomorrow. I don't, and I didn't. So I now have a sticker chart, and if I hit 10,000 steps in a day, I give myself a sticker. And I will say, if I hit 20,000 steps, like if you're at the weekend and out and about, if I hit 20,000, I don't get 2. And if I hit 8,000, I don't get the 1. I don't round. It is literally, have I or have I not crossed the 10,000 threshold? And I'm really strict with it. The goal is to hit 200 days before the 1st of October, which means I need roughly between 5 and 6 days a week on average. And it's so silly and it's totally self-enforced, but I feel like I've got to be strict with it because otherwise it doesn't mean anything. And what this is actually doing is building my self-trust back up by saying I'm going to do something for me, something small, but then actually doing it, actually following through with it. And it's like that whole thing of, If you set your alarm for 6 a.m. every day and tell yourself, I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. and then lie in bed till 7:30, you're probably going to be so much more frustrated with yourself than if you just set the alarm for 7:30, because you've started your day by breaking a promise to yourself. So I've really tried to find little challenges of simple self-trust where I can. So another thing that I'm doing a bit more of, and this one is super recent, this isn't a 2026 one, I'd say probably in the last couple of weeks, is actually just making decisions. So what I want for lunch, or what shall we watch on telly in an evening, rather than, you choose, or saying, I don't mind, just I'll decide. Trust my instincts, say what I want, and even if I really don't mind, just decide. And that is actually really helping. I have also had a big pens and paper session. Highly recommend. Love a bit of analog. So I sat down at my dining table. I had all these pieces of paper, both lined and blank, because, we go all out. I had highlighters, and I looked through feedback from past clients and from business pals, like things that people have said on retreats I've been on. And I looked at the words that kept coming up and the words that people use. And I also wrote down words that I wanted to be associated with my work and things that made me excited. I've also found it interesting. I've been looking at jobs, and yes, I will be honest, I absolutely have done that in this season. And I've really just not been inspired by 99% of the marketing and social media roles. Now I've thought I could do that, but not. I want to do that. So that was very interesting. So yeah, picking out these keywords, picking out the things that people were celebrating me for and were saying that they wanted to work with me for or were grateful for. And I think it's always very interesting to look at client feedback, because we make assumptions about why people work with us or why someone chose us, and actually the language that someone uses might be entirely different to what we think is the reason. So they're just a few things, some mini self-trust challenges, figuring out what it is that people said about me and what I want to be associated with my business, and also cutting off ChatGPT. Some of the cool things that I've been doing. And I also brought this podcast back. So that kind of fell off last year because I didn't feel clear on the direction with the business, and I want the podcast to make sense and kind of have intention and purpose behind it. So I let the podcast go quiet, so I brought that back, and now with guest episodes to focus on their self-trust stories. And that has been a real theme, and I have absolutely loved talking to guests about their stories and being inspired by their moments of doubt or completely backing themselves. So after all of that, and it doesn't sound that much, but yeah, it's been months of doing all those things, particularly having conversations back and forth. Where I got to is essentially what I actually said to my sister in the first place a year ago, but I didn't have the balls to share it or to action that thing. So where I got to is I want to be a coach. I want to talk about mindset. I want to support more people to realise how freaking brilliant they are already. So I will now be working on Social by Neo, but also a new community project. So I'd love to tell you a bit more about both of those things. So through Social by Neo, I will be your social media cheerleader. I want to be a positive space on the internet, create a positive space on the internet, empowering you to do things your way, and also supporting you to figure out what your way actually is. And I think there's so much mean girl marketing and quick wins and putting people on pedestals in the online world right now. So I very much want to be the antidote to that. I have had so many conversations over the past year where actually business owners have great ideas. Obviously they do. They work for themselves. But what they lack is the confidence to shout about them. Or they are overthinking how to show up online because there's so much conflicting advice and so much noise. So my focus will be helping you to tune out that noise and dialing up the self-trust to do it your way, without relying on the robots or feeling under pressure to follow someone else's, very structured strategy, because I think that is what's stopping you from showing up at all. And I know that if you're the kind of person listening to this podcast, that the world needs more you. It's totally okay to do things your way. You don't have to follow rules. You are in charge, and I will be waiting with all of the permission slips to help you do that. So that's Social by Nao. Social media mindset and coaching work. Woo! That's very exciting and kind of mad to say out loud. I really didn't know whether to shy away from the word coach as well, I'll be honest. I feel like that has been given some really icky connotations in the online world in recent years. But it was actually that friend who I spoke to last week who has been really encouraging of that, and she is a psychotherapist and coach, like qualified, trained, expert human, and we were having some really good conversations around, a lot of the work that I've been doing already and the way that I speak to friends and speak to clients is coaching. And I will, of course, be completing some formal training because I think that it's important to do my research and do my due diligence and make sure that clients get the absolute best from me. But she was very encouraging that should not be a barrier to start, and it can be something that I do along the way. So yeah, I am owning the word coach and allowing myself to use it, and I'm very excited about this work. I know that there are so many incredible social media strategists and memberships and training courses and all the things, and I am more than happy to point you in the direction of those people if that is the work that you want to do. But I am going to, from this point on, very happily stay in my own lane of supporting you with the mindset that it takes to show up on social media and getting your confidence and your self-trust back with doing it in a way that works for you. So the second project that I want to share is a brand new community. And this is not going to be just for business owners. This will be totally separate to Social by Nao. So I'm very excited to introduce you to the Overachievers Club. This is a community for overachievers, overthinkers, and self-critical tryhards. And this is going to be a space to celebrate yourself and define what success means to you without the influence of others and without the judgment of what other people deem as success. And also, if we're going to be overachievers, let's overachieve at joy. We have unlimited access to so many possibilities and insights into so many people's lives, or at least the curated versions of their lives. And I really think it has led us to constantly feeling like we're not doing enough. And there's always more, and there's always another option. And this isn't necessarily just on social media, but I do think the amount of time that we spend on there has really highlighted it and emphasized it. I have seen it with new mums worrying about the progress that their child is making versus the mum influencers online, or worrying that, oh, well, I've only got that one hobby, but that other mum has huge career success and finds time for holidays and also does XYZ hobbies. It's a huge problem in the self-employed space because there's nobody there to say job well done or validate us or benchmark us in the way that a corporate job would. And so naturally, we often think we could be doing more, we could be doing better, or we simply just forget to celebrate the wins because it's just like, right, goal, done, move on. Us overachievers are everywhere. So I want to create a home for us, and this will be a slow burn project. I'm kind of creating this with no initial expectations, but it is something that I'm really passionate about. And as someone who used to be the most uptight and stressy, sad human, particularly through my school and early career years, where I felt a lot of pressure to succeed and try hard and do well. I have now done so much work on my mindset, and I know the impact it can have. I feel like I've really got to a place where I've been able to decenter work. So as much as this past year has been really difficult and really frustrating, I don't think at any point I have said I'm unhappy, or at least in the general sense. I have been able to say I'm unhappy with work, but I've been able to recognise and have gratitude for all the other good things in my life. And I don't think I would have been able to get through this last year in the way I have had I not done all that work to be able to compartmentalise. And there's just so many people, and I've seen it in all areas of my life, particularly in the business world, but with friends and family as well. So many people that deserve to celebrate themselves and also feel peaceful, feel that they've done enough. And so that is the driver behind the Overachievers Club. Yeah, we're overachievers. That doesn't have to be a bad thing. But can we overachieve at joy before anything else? Now, if you are still listening, you are half an hour-ish into this monologue of thoughts about the last year, my thoughts about social media right now, and being an overachiever and all the things. So I really appreciate you listening up till this point. And I would really, really love to continue this conversation and these discussions over on Instagram or wherever it is that we are connected. I would love to chat. If you are listening to this because you are also in a season of feeling like you've fallen out of love with your business, then I am sending you all of the luck and all of the love. I hope some of the things that I've shared, that I've been doing behind the scenes to help figure things out for me, help you to figure things out for yourself as well. Equally, if you've been in this season of you've fallen out of love with business and turned things around, then celebrating you, because my goodness, I know how difficult and uncomfortable it feels. So well done for coming out of the other side of that. And if you're in neither of those camps and you just want to be nosy and find out what's going on over here, then I appreciate your interest. I respect it. I think it's always interesting to hear what's going on in other people's lives and other people's businesses and kind of just be reminded that it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and that's totally okay. It's okay if things are hard, but that doesn't mean they're going to stay hard. So on that note, I will wrap up with a cheesy quote. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce the person that this quote is from. Nido, I'm going to get this wrong, so I apologize in advance. Nido Qubein. This quote has been really helpful in allowing myself, giving myself permission to change things in the way that I wanted to. So I mentioned that basically a year ago I said to my sister, I want to do coaching, but I didn't feel as social by now as someone who works in social media and does strategy. I was like, I can't just pivot into coaching. I've got to, work my way there and do little changes along the way. And I was holding myself back because I didn't think that was a route I didn't think that was an option for me. And I didn't allow myself to do that. And I was worried about being judged by other people for wanting that. So this quote has been really helpful. And it is: your present circumstances don't determine where you can go. They merely determine where you start. So take that with you into the rest of your week, and I hope it's a good one. I hope you have a gorgeous rest of your day, and I will be back in your ears with a guest episode next week. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye!